Okay, let's dive into this. It's really one of history's great puzzles, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're talking about a medieval manuscript, written in a script nobody can read.
Filled with these incredibly bizarre drawings, it's baffled pretty much everyone for centuries.
And it's sitting right there at Yale University in the Beinecke Library, the Voynich Manuscript.
Yeah, just physically, it's about, what, 240 vellum pages?
Roughly.
Yeah.
And covered in this unique script, plus these drawings. You've got weird plants, astronomical charts, women in these strange green pools.
It's wild. And the big question, the one everyone keeps asking, is just, what does it say?
Exactly. We know it's old. Carbon dating puts it somewhere between 1404 and 1438, early 15th century.
So our mission today, really, is to trace its journey. How did this thing travel through time? And crucially, what about these recent developments? Are we finally cracking it?
It's an amazing story. And, it speaks volumes about our desire to understand the past, even when it's deliberately obscured.
So where does the story start? The earliest confirmed owner seems to be Emperor Rudolph II.
That's right, late 16th, maybe early 17th century. And he paid a fortune for it, 600 gold ducats.
Wow. Why so much?
Well, he apparently believes it was written by Roger Bacon, the medieval scholar,
Right.
and Rudolph's court in Prague. It was this real hotspot for science, but also alchemy, the occult.
Right, a mix of rigorous study and more esoteric stuff. So a lost work by Bacon would have been huge.
Absolutely. Big names like Tycho Brahe were around, so this manuscript would have fit right into that kind of intellectual ferment.
Okay, so after Rudolph,
It passed to his physician, Jacobus Sinapius, then later to an alchemist named Georg Bartius.
Bartius. He's the one who got really frustrated, right?
Yeah, he famously called it the riddle of the Sphinx. He felt sure it held important knowledge, probably medical, but he just couldn't make heads or tails of it.
You can feel his pain. Did he try to get help?
He did. He actually contacted Athanasius Kircher,
The Jesuit scholar. The polymath.
the very same.
Yeah.
Kircher was kind of the go-to guy in the 17th century if you had something weird you needed deciphering. Bartius hoped he could crack it.
Did Kircher get the manuscript then?
Not directly from Bartius, it seems. Later, around 1666, it was owned by Johannes Marcus Marci, who was the rector of Prague University.
Okay.
Marci also thought it was Roger Bacon's work, and he sent it off to Kircher in Rome. He included a letter explaining its history as he knew it.
Hoping Kircher could work his magic, maybe like he did with hieroglyphs, or tried to.
Exactly. But even Kircher drew a blank. Couldn't decipher it.
And then, poof, it disappears.
Pretty much. For about 250 years, it just drops off the historical radar. It adds so much to the mystique, doesn't it?
It really does. Maybe after Kircher failed, people just, I don't know, filed it away, forgot about it.
Possibly. It probably ended up in the library of the Collegio Romano where Kircher's collection went, but just got lost in the shuffle. Until
1912. Enter Wilfrid Voynich.
right, the Polish book dealer it's now named after.
Yeah.
He found it at a Jesuit college, Villa Mondragone, near Rome.
And he became completely obsessed.
Utterly captivated. He thought it contained, profound secrets, maybe even black magic, knowledge, way ahead of its time.
What made him so sure?
Finding that letter from Marci tucked inside was huge. It seemed to confirm the Roger Bacon link and the manuscript's importance. He spent years trying to crack it, or get others to. And, well, he also hoped to sell it for a very high price.
Understandable. Did he get anywhere with decipherment?
There were early attempts. William Romain Newbold had this theory about microscopic writing hidden inside the letters.
Oh, I remember hearing about that, like secret messages within the script.
Exactly. Claimed it revealed advanced science. But that was pretty thoroughly debunked later on.
Why, who?
People like John Matthews Manley and especially William F. Friedman.
The famous cryptanalyst, broke Japanese codes in WWII?
That's the one. Friedman spent a lot of time on the Voynich, even set up study groups. His conclusion was fascinating, though.
What was it?
After all that analysis, he leaned towards it being an artificial language, something deliberately constructed, not just a cipher of a known language.
Wow. Coming from him, that's significant. Why did he think that?
He noticed statistical patterns in the text, like how letters combined, that just didn't match any natural language he knew. It seemed structured, but in an unnatural way.
So, what happened after Wilfrid Voynich died?
His wife, Ethel Voynich herself, a famous author, she wrote The Gadfly, inherited it in 1930. She kept it pretty quiet. After her death in 1960, it went to her friend, Anne Nill. And Nill sold it in 1961 to another dealer, Hans Peter Krauss.
So it stayed in the book trade. Did Krauss manage to sell it?
He tried, But, maybe it's sheer weirdness put buyers off. No one took the bait.
So what did he do?
In 1969, he very generously donated it to Yale.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's been ever since, accessible for study.
Okay, which leads us right up to the modern era and the technology that started to change everything. You mentioned multispectral imaging back in January 2025.
Yes, this was a game changer. Dr. Lisa Fagan Davis used this tech, basically looking at the manuscript under different kinds of light, and found things invisible before.
Like what?
Faint annotations in the margins, written in Latin.
No way! After all this time, who wrote them?
Get this, Johannes Marcus Marci, the guy who sent it to Kircher back in the 17th century.
Incredible. What did he write?
Things like Latin plant names Helleborus artemisia, right next to the corresponding drawings. It was like he was trying to create his own little key, connecting the weird pictures to known plants.
That's the first real link, isn't it? Between the Voynich world and, well, our world.
Absolutely. And the imaging also showed something else, corrections made by the original author, directly on the Voynich script.
What does that tell us?
It suggests care, deliberation. This wasn't just random scribbling. Someone was composing and refining this text. It points away from, say, a hoax.
Okay, so Marcy's notes give us a clue. Then what happened in February 2025?
More breakthroughs from Yale researchers. They managed to identify about 100 recurring words in the Voynich script.
What was the key?
They figured out the type of cipher. It's a substitution cipher, but a really clever one. It uses multiple different symbols to stand for the same letter. Homophones.
So that messes up simple frequency analysis, trying to count which letters appear most often.
Precisely. If E can be represented by 5 different symbols, the pattern gets much harder to spot. It's quite sophisticated for the early 15th century.
So they cracked the type of cipher? Did they start reading it?
They made quick progress. By March 2025, they announced they'd partially deciphered about 30% of the botanical section.
What's it about? Was Bartius right? Is it medical?
It looks like it. The deciphered parts strongly point towards it being a medical book, focusing on herbal remedies.
Okay, that makes sense with the plant drawings.
And there's more. It seems to include instructions linked to astrology, when to collect plants or administer treatments based on, the moon phase or planets. Very typical for medicine back then.
Right. What about those women in the green pools, the really iconic images?
Well, the interpretation is shifting there, too. The thinking now is that section might deal with women's reproductive health.
Seriously, so those pools might represent
Possibly wounds or aspects of the reproductive system. It suggests the manuscript contains quite detailed gynecological information.
Why encode that specifically?
That's a great question. Maybe it's sensitive knowledge. Remember, this was a time when women healers could face persecution. Encoding it might have been a way to protect that knowledge or the people using it.
Fascinating. Have they translated any specific recipes?
There's one partial translation they've mentioned from Folio 116V. It seems to be for a wound plaster.
And what's in it? Anything weird?
Ghost liver, apparently. And what's interesting is the text seems to mix Voynich script with some abbreviated Latin or maybe medieval German terms.
Huh. So it's not all code.
It seems parts might use standard terms, maybe for ingredients, while the core instructions remain coded. It suggests a practical working document.
So if we pull all this together, the centuries of mystery, the recent breakthroughs, what's the picture emerging now?
The picture is shifting dramatically. It's looking less like an alien artifact or an elaborate hoax, and much more like a genuine, practical medical handbook from the early Renaissance, just written in a very clever code.
What does that mean for history?
It's huge. It gives us this incredibly direct, though still filtered, view into 15th century medical thinking. We see the blend of observation, plant knowledge, astrology.
And potentially a real focus on women's health, which often gets overlooked in the official texts.
Exactly. And who knows, there might even be practical knowledge there. Information about plants, maybe antimicrobial properties, pain relief uses that could still be relevant. Think about things like the nightshade family mentioned belladonna for sleep or pain.
Plus the code itself. It's remarkably advanced for its time.
Way ahead of its time. It tells you something about the intellectual world of the person who created it.
It kind of humanizes it all, doesn't it? Takes it from this abstract mystery to something a real person, probably a healer, actually wrote and maybe used.
Precisely. It's a window into knowledge at a community level, perhaps.
And yet, the fascination hasn't faded. If anything, these discoveries have just fueled more interest, right? Yale's digital library must be getting hammered.
Oh, absolutely. Visitor numbers have spiked.
Yeah.
It still inspires artists. You see echoes in things like the Codex and pops up in popular culture. It just has this enduring grip.
Why do you think that is, even as we start to understand it?
I think it's that combination of the unknown, the visual beauty, the sheer persistence of the mystery, and now the thrill of the chase as it starts to yield its secrets. It touches on deep questions about knowledge, secrecy, and time.
So the main takeaway for now seems to be Voynich Manuscript, likely a coded 15th century medical text, a window into Renaissance health practices.
That's the strong direction of research, yes. But it's crucial to remember it's not fully deciphered. Maybe only 30% or so, mostly the botanical parts. There's still a long way to go. Estimates are, what, maybe another decade?
Still a ways off. But the progress is stunning.
It really is. And there's something quite poetic about it, isn't there? A message encoded so well that it took centuries, took the development of specific technologies to even begin reading it. Maybe it had to wait until a time it could be understood without fear.
That's a really powerful thought to leave people with. It makes you wonder, what else is out there? What other secrets are hidden in plain sight, just waiting for the right key, the right moment?
And what does it tell us about periods where knowledge was powerful, yes, but also potentially dangerous to possess or share openly? It's a lot to think about.